The Ottawa Charge win 2-0 against the Toronto Scepters. But I waited to make a video. Why is that? Because I needed to know how much I could celebrate. Well, this is a good thing, obviously. A regulation win against Toronto, just what the doctor ordered. It's exactly what we needed to keep our season alive, to actually maybe give us favorable odds. But it fully depended on the next game. The Toronto Scepters lose 3-2 in regulation to the New York Sirens. This is kind of a double dip video, if you will. Because as a Charge fan, I've never been rooting for New York more. Yes, New York is one of the teams that we are fighting for that very last playoff spot. But New York winning does two things. One, Vancouver's done. They aren't mathematically eliminated, but Vancouver's done. They are 6 points out with 3 games left, and they're 5 points behind New York, and like, that's kind of it, right? Like, that's it. Now there's no, or 4 points, yeah. 4 points behind New York, 4 points behind Toronto, but that's kind of it, because we faced New York, we faced Toronto, we all face each other once. Kind of guaranteeing that at least one of these teams is probably going to get at least another 4 points. Vancouver's not winning out, if we're being completely serious. They're probably not going to win out. They're probably not going to win out in regulation. And it's extremely doubtful that all of Ottawa, New York, and Toronto will lose out in regulation. So one, it takes another team. Seattle's been mathematically eliminated. They cannot catch us no matter what. So, hey, if Seattle's playing, unless they're playing, well, they don't play Ottawa for the rest of the season. So objectively, it's always good now as a Charge fan to root for. If you see Seattle playing, root for them, because they can't catch us. They're the one team that for sure, no way at all they can catch us. So that's number one. Number two, Vancouver's very close to being that. Saturday, it could be set in stone. A Charge win, Vancouver loss, you put those two together, that would do it. I'm pretty sure a Charge win of any sort and combined with a Vancouver loss of any sort would do it. An Ottawa Charge win in regulation wouldn't necessarily mathematically eliminate them, but it would put us at 39 points, 9 points ahead of them, 3 games left. Come on. So, puts Vancouver completely on the ropes. But the most important thing is that now Ottawa, Toronto, and New York have played the same amount of games. Ottawa's up by 2. After we beat Toronto, yay! We did it! We are back in a playoff spot. Yeah, we took the lead back, but did we really? Toronto has a game in hand. All they need to do is beat New York, and they're right back. They could even win in overtime, and on tiebreaker, they would overtake us. They could clinch the tiebreaker. Just about. They would need to lose out in regulation. We would need to win out in regulation. They could really put, and instead, they lost in regulation. So now what's the situation? Now the situation is 3 games left. Ottawa leads by 2. If we go into the last game of the season between us and Toronto, and everything else stays the same. Say we win our next 2, Toronto wins their next 2. Say both of us win in regulation. That would knock out Detroit, but Toronto and Ottawa would go into that. It would give us, I talked about it in my previous video game, that advantage of needing a regulation win. If we go into the last game of the season up 2, Toronto can't win in overtime. There is no winning for them if it goes to overtime. And better yet, overtime would be a win. If we go into the last game of the season, and you look at the standings, and Ottawa has 2 more points than Toronto, play for OT. Who cares? Play for OT, and when it's tied, late in the third, and they inevitably pull their goalie, score an empty netter. Make it easy. It gives us that benefit. It gives it back to us. It puts us in the driver's seat as the team most likely to make the play. That's been going all over the place. Who's more likely? Ottawa, Toronto. Ottawa, Toronto. Ottawa, Toronto, New York. Right now it's Ottawa. Because with 27 games played, Ottawa has 36 points. Toronto and New York, 34. Vancouver, 31. Seattle, 30. We are that team. That team at the top of the pecking order for the final playoff spot. Look, I want to be angry about the performance because let me be clear. This was not by any metric a good game except for one. But it's the one that matters. I said it last game. I used exaggerated stats of what the shot line could look like. And I said, as long as Ottawa wins, I don't care. So I'm going to stick to my guns here. Shots were 42-18. 9 times out of 10 we lose this game. We won in regulation. Who cares? You think Scepters fans care? That they totally had us? They totally should have won? Look at the deserves to win. I mean, they lost. They lost in regulation. They were in a playoff spot going into this game. They are not in a playoff spot after leaving. They went into a game against Ottawa with a game in hand in a playoff spot. Fast forward 2 games later, with as many games played, they're on the outside looking in because we stole one from them. Did that not happen against Montreal, right? Right? We outplayed them, we outshot them, but we just couldn't score. Did that not happen to some degree against even Toronto, where we played pretty well and couldn't even get the overtime point? Or Seattle? I discussed those games at length about why it wasn't acceptable, about why you need to get results. We got the result. So yeah, 0 for 5 on the power play. Not good. 42-18 is such a disgusting shot total, and the only reason we won this game is that Gwenyth Phillips was locked in. She's yet again dragging this team, kicking and screaming to success. Last season, she willed this team to the Walter Cup finals, nearly willed this team to a Walter Cup championship. She's doing it again. She willed this team to the playoffs. She willed them. We were so lucky that she played the way she did down the stretch, especially when Maschmeyer went down and we have to rely on this backup goaltender, Gwenyth Phillips. Who's that? Oh, she's just maybe the greatest goaltender in that this league has in the foreseeable future. I think right now Frankel and Desbiens they're Frankel and Desbiens. But give it 5 years. Give it 5 years. If Phillips is still on this roster in 5 years, then that, sadly, it's a very big if. Now, I think the Charge need to do everything in their power to keep her. You know, you give her a blank check. You say, whatever it takes to keep you here, we need you here. Like, she is the future of this franchise. You know, but we've seen other star players go and still survived. But she is a player who so fundamentally changes a game, who can really steal a game. And this is another thing I want to mention. In the NHL, you can't really luck your way to a Stanley Cup. Not anymore, at least. That element has virtually been scrubbed out of the league. Why? Simple. 16 teams make the playoffs. You go through 4 rounds. You can luck your way into a playoff spot. Oh, yeah. LA already did that. The Los Angeles Kings do not belong in the playoffs at all. 22, I think, as of making this video. 22 regulation. Heck, let's give them a regulation win in their final game of the season. Even if they get to 23. 20-something. 20-anything regulation wins in the NHL should not be an NHL team and a playoff team. Absolutely terrible. Absolutely terrible that a team like that is somehow going to the postseason. But they lucked their way into it. You know, weak division, other teams playing really poorly, kind of snuck their way into that last playoff spot. Who knows? They might even leapfrog the Ducks. The Pacific's really weak this year. The Kings aren't winning the Cup. Sorry to break it to you, Kings fans. You're not like if the Kings eat the cup, I'll eat my words, right? I'll do like that reporter when Canada lost game 1 to the Soviet Union. I will print out those words. I will cook myself some sort of delicious Los Angeles meal, and I will eat my words. The Kings aren't winning the cup this year. They can't. They won't, because even if they luck their way out of round 1, round 2, round 3, round 4, it doesn't happen. You don't luck your way into 16 wins out of what's the math? 16 wins out of if every, which no one's ever gone 7 every series, but 16 you might get 20 something games. That's not luck. That needs to be a well-built, consistent machine. You can win 6 out of 10 on pure luck. You can win 6 out of 10. If you make the playoffs in the PWHL and Gwenyth Phillips decides to win games, you can luck your way into 6 out of 10 wins. And you can debate all you want about what that means for the long-term health. A championship is a championship is a championship. There is nothing better to the long-term health of a franchise than winning a championship, because that is the objective goal, to win the Walter Cup. We're not vying for a 1 in 16 chance. We're vying for a 1 in 4. And we're in the lead. We're in the lead for that last ticket to a 1 in 4 chance. So you ask me, yeah, there were a lot of reasons to be concerned. A lot of reasons to be concerned. Are you kidding me? Outshot 42 to 18. No goals on the power play. Our only goal that, wasn't an empty netter was, let's be honest, a beyond mind-numbing mistake on Toronto's part, giving it to Brienne Jeter, one of the best players in the league, who's been having a career year, who's rewound the clock a decade. Open in the slot. What do you think is going to happen? She shoots, she scores 1-0 with 7 to go in the third. Because despite the fact that they'd just been going at us all the first period, the first 5 minutes were the only time it was maybe kind of close. Maybe. And then they just boom, boom, boom in the first period. In the second period, it's even worse. Despite the parade to the penalty box in the third period, they are fully dominating play, controlling the puck, taking shots. Everything that you want to do, Toronto's doing. Everything you want to avoid, Ottawa's doing. We score first. It took us nearly the entire game. We get on the board. Gwenyth Phillips does not break. Wozniewicz to close it out. Empty netter. She scores. 2-0. Who cares? Who cares what the underlying stats say? There's 3 games left. Who's in a playoff spot? Look, we can talk all you want about the technicalities. When playoff time comes, all bets are off. Root for a win. And in this league, I've seen the Charge get hot at the right time. They win 6 out of 10. That's enough. Once they make the playoffs. 6 out of 10. That's it. That is it. You need 16 wins in the NHL to win the Stanley Cup in the postseason. You can have up to 12 losses. You can play 28 postseason games in theory. Luck gets scrubbed out at that big a sample size. You don't get lucky in a 28 game stretch. It's the team that's consistent. You can get lucky in a 10, 15 game stretch. That's why we have seen teams luck it their way, go into a Cinderella run, and burn out in the conference finals. So that's somewhat common. Not like super common, but if the Kings is the perfect example. Well, if they end up in the Pacific, if they end up facing a Pacific opponent, I could see them getting in the conference final. I could see them beating Vegas. I could see them beating Edmonton. It's doable. It's not the most likely scenario, but I could see a world in which LA faces Edmonton and then Vegas, or LA and then Anaheim. They could make it to the conference finals. They could. They won't win the cup because the way that the playoffs are structured, it's going to be too long. It's going to be too much. They won't be able to pull it off. The Charge could win the Walter Cup if they make the playoffs. Why? They get hot. And they can get hot at the right times. Oh, Leslie gets hot again in the playoffs. Clark shows up right when you need her to. So does Hughes. And in 5 games, they each get a point per game. Well, 5 games, if you win, the first 4, you're already up 1-0 in the finals. You win 4 or 5 in the postseason. In the NHL, great. Round 1 is done. You still need to do that 3 more times. In the PWHL, if you win 4 or 5 in the postseason, you're 2 away from the whole thing. From putting a cap on your season. This team could do it with Gwenyth Phillips between the pipes. She stole this game. She's stolen a full series against Montreal. A great Montreal team. Best in the league Montreal team. Unstoppable Montreal team. No way they're going to lose Montreal team. Walter Cup champion Montreal lose in 4. It can be done. And now we lead the pack. Now we are the leaders. And you face New York and you face Toronto. I'm going to say it, that needs to be 6. That needs to be 6 points. Also, if it is 6 points, who even cares? You can drop... Literally, if we just beat New York in regulation and Toronto in regulation, we could get blown out by 10 against Boston and make it. Honestly, I borderline question if you start Phillips that game if you beat New York in regulation. Just go for... the only thing is, we are the team, one of the few, I think the only team, that has a realistic chance of clinching before the final day of the playoffs. If we beat New York in regulation and Toronto loses another game in regulation, that would give us a 5-point cushion going into the second last game of the season. That would just about do it, right? Like, if we beat New York and Boston now, and we beat New York in regulation, and we get a point against Boston, all we really need is a Toronto loss. We've put ourselves in a great position. We put ourselves in a terrible position. 3 regulation losses, out of a playoff spot, right back to a great position. What do you do here? Because we've been on this merry-go-round before. We've been on the merry-go-round where the Charge, they look really, really good, and they're making it, but it's really, really good, but it's really, really... This is where you got 3 games left, lock in, finish the job, beat New York in regulation, beat Boston, hope that Toronto falters, and you could be fine. We lose to New York, all of a sudden everything shifts. It's so quick how much, especially in a 3-2-1-0 system, how everything can shift in one. Toronto went into this game with a chance to give themselves a 4-point cushion on the playoffs, virtually locking it. And instead, they are out of the playoff picture right now, and they are tied with New York. They went from having full control of their destiny with over a game cushion, like with a full win, and instead they are tied for 5th. They could drop to 6th rather quickly if they lose to New York again. But there is very much hope alive in Ottawa. It's just about locking it down now. That's one of the Ottawa hockey teams. But the other makes me think this beard's got to go. So I'll be back to talk about them real soon. And as always, Go! Ottawa! Go!